Hey, it's Becky. Okay, you ready? So far, when you follow the link, you're going to get all the videos. So if you're catching or starting late, you can catch up. We have already gone through the heart of homeschooling, that holy trinity of homeschooling where you're focusing on heart, attitude, and character with your kids. So that's already in there. We have already talked about setting your master homeschool goals. What is it that you want your kids to know by the time they graduate high school? So that's already waiting for you. You have your success plan to help you get through the homeschool planning season. We talked about the overwhelming task of planning your homeschool year and that you got to do it one bite at a time. So waiting for you at the link, we have already gone over the necessity of, I think, if I can get the thing, of picking a golden thread for you to weave as many of the subjects together as possible so that we're gonna start getting into planning. Planning your homeschool year actually has a couple pieces to it. And I always start, look at my cute little family at the top. Aren't they cute? Okay, sorry, I had to share that. For me, homeschool planning starts with taking big bites. So in order to break down what you're going to do on Tuesday, October 17th, you got to have a plan. You kind of need to know where you're heading. And so I call this big bites, and this is a year at a glance. So no matter when you are teaching, no matter what grades you're teaching, no matter how old your kids are, you should sit down and take the time to create a master plan of what you're going to be doing throughout the school year, combining as many of the kids and grades together as possible to save your own sanity. So let's talk about how this works. How do you take big bites so that you are then ready to start breaking these down into what you're actually teaching? This is the fun stroke. This is where you get to be all dreamy-eyed about how wonderful it will be during this homeschool year, and kids are all excited. And so this is the dreamy stage. It's my favorite part of homeschool planning, when you just get to sit back and think about, how can I approach this creatively? So as I was thinking about this, so we talked about the heart of homeschool, goals, golden thread. As I was thinking about this, I decided to pick a topic that would be kind of easy for me to do sort of off the top of my head. This works whether you're teaching kindergarten or high school. Doesn't matter. You need a plan. You got to find the forest through the trees, because if you don't know where you're headed, then how are you going to get there? So here's my fancy little forest. And it doesn't matter if you're K through 2nd, 3rd through 6th, or if you're 7th through 12th. It doesn't matter. You need a plan. So what I'm gonna play with is as if I was going to take my kids on a tour around the United States. So this is classically taught somewhere between 2nd and 4th grade. And you can do it super fast and do a survey that takes a year. Or if you're like me and you like to slow down, it might take you 2 years. So I'm going to play with showing you how this works with a 2-year plan of going around a tour of the United States, teaching our kids with a golden thread. So it all starts with your golden thread. What is the thing that you're going to be weaving everything through? So I'm going to do U.S. states. Okay. And I'm going to take the time to think, okay, how many states are there in the United States of America? Well, there are 50, unless you like to have debates about whether or not other things should be called states. So now, how many days, how many months are there in a year? Well, I make a little chart so that I don't have to count. And I go 1, 2, well, I guess you got to count, but I don't want to know this number off the top of my head. We traditionally school our sons from August to May. In reality, I'll probably start sometime in September, and I start counting down the days to summer sometime in mid-March, and I'm lucky to make it to May. But this is rose-colored glasses time. So there are 10 months out of the year, traditionally, that you will be homeschooling your kids. So 10 months out of the year, 50 states, 5 states a month, that's fast. If you've got multiple grades, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pretend for this that we're only going to do 1 state at a time. If I was truly going to do this as a unit with my kids, I'd probably lean towards 3 or 4 states, like 1 state a week type thing. But just for demonstration's sake, I'm going to show you just what I would do for 1 month so you can kind of get an idea of how I would walk through this and how this breaks down. This big bite, year at a glance, is something that would personally take me a few days to go through. I'm not a fast learner. I have to do things 1 bite at a time. So step 1 for me would be to choose my golden thread and then to make my chart. Have a cup of coffee, go out in the sun and celebrate. That is choosing thread, making chart. The second thing would be to break down my golden thread for my entire year in pencil because life happens. But in this instance, I'm going to just brainstorm my state right now, which is Washington State. So that makes it easy for me to talk about it off the top of my head. So if I were doing a US state tour, I would start with where we live, right? Because that's interesting to your kids. And I can tell you that you don't know everything about where you live. And if you do, that's fantastic. But most of us don't know what's in our own backyard. So Washington, that would be where I would start. That would be my golden thread. Now, when I'm teaching history, later, I'm going to break that down into, well, what do I want the kids to know about each of the states? So you're caught up, right? So we're going to do this for every month of the year. But what I would do later, so sitting number 1, I would do August. Later, I would break that apart. What kinds of things would I want the kids to know for each state in a year or 2 survey? Well, I would want them to know the capital. I would want them to know the basic history. Then I would think about my own kids and I would say, okay, I don't have any girls. I have 5 boys. But I would say, what would my ballerina princess want to know? She would want to know what the flowers are. So we would do flowers. What would my monkey child want to know? He would want to know about the volcanoes and the different things that you can see. So first you identify the state. That's 1 sitting. Later, you're going to come back and you're going to fill in, well, what are we going to be breaking down in this golden thread? Does that make sense? Thumb, heart, comment. It makes me feel like I'm not alone in the universe. Okay, so you pick your thing. Then language, you want this to come alive as you're teaching. So let me share a screen. What I do first is I pick my golden threads. I don't like to spend a lot of money. So what I do next is I will go, let me open my screen up to this one. I go to Amazon. Yep. So I go to Amazon and I put in children's books about, and then fill in your golden thread. Doesn't matter what it is. It can be children's books about turkeys, children's books about the Civil War, children's books about fill in the blank. And then I'm looking for, do I recognize any of these books? Are they beloved to me? This one, if I've got youngers, these series of W is for, there's an entire alphabetic series about the letter of the alphabet and then the state. And it's filled with all kinds of goodies about the states. And what I would do is I'd be looking through here. I'd be looking for ideas. I'd be looking for books that I might have on my own bookshelf. And I would be making my list of books that I'm going to check out from the library. And so I do that every time I'm teaching a golden thread. I pick the topic and then I search on Amazon for what books. The reason I do that is because the database search system for my library is not very good. So I find the titles on Amazon, and you can look up all kinds of stuff. So I would pick a book to go with this state. Personally, I'd pick 4 picture books or more, no matter how old my kids are. The older your kids are, the more powerful a picture book can be, because children's authors have to select their language very carefully because they're short. And so they're filled with rich vocabulary and rich themes and condensed, beautiful language, and usually images that are captivating. And so I still read picture books to all of my children that are still at home, even my 22-year-old. So we enjoy picture books because it's a way to get wrapped up in a story and to do it quickly. So pick 2, 4, or however many books you can get from the library or Amazon to go along with your golden thread. So just randomly, I would pick, because I like the alphabetic books, I would do the W is for Washington. Because it's going to be filled with all kinds of goodies. Now, I live in Washington State. What else would I want my kids to know? I did not pre-search this, so I'm going to put chapter books, chapter. You're going to see that I can't spell when I'm talking. Actually, I never can spell when I'm writing, but a chapter books about Washington State. Let's see what pops up. See if anything that I see. Pippa Park, Alexander Hamilton. That's not really, okay, so that might be a fun one. I would just be looking American history. Maybe I can do 3rd grade because I said 3rd grade, right? Got to remember, Amazon has an amazing search engine. Who was George Washington? Northwest Home Landscaping. The reason I'm writing that down is I have a science lover in my house, so that would be a really big one. So you get the idea, right? You are thinking one bite at a time, big bites at a time. Can I find books that go along with this topic of the United States, one master or 1 or 2 major topics that you're doing in a month? And then you're looking for books that go along with it and any science with it. If I was going to be doing science with the kids that I live with in my house, we would do volcanoes. I'll show you why. Dun, dun, dun. Does this show? Is that okay? Cool. I'm not showing it. Let me get it there. I'll show you why we would do volcanoes, because my family and I just went to visit a volcano. It was fantastic. Okay. So this is my family, the kids that are at home, my family that's at home. That big rock in the back is the most phantasmagoric volcano I have ever seen up close and personal. That's Mount Rainier. And so because I know that, living in Washington State, we would do volcanoes. And you could do a month or a year learning about, depending on the kids. So that's applicable to my state of Washington. So you pick something scientifically that goes with what it is you're studying, and you can do a quick Google search on science experiments about, and you'll get all these ideas. Trust me, it's fantastic. Okay, so Washington, I'm going to come back later and I'm going to fill in the blanks. That's later. That's another sitting. Language, I'm going to pick some books, and then I'm going to come back later and I'm going to fill in spelling, copyright or copywork, spelling and vocabulary, some kind of writing. Writing does not mean essay. Writing does not mean research paper. It could be drawing the map of the state and then labeling everything on the map and putting that under writing because they're practicing handwriting and spelling and that kind of stuff. So you can be super creative on your writing ideas. Science, it would be fun to do at least one hands-on science thing a month. So thinking about this right here, we would either plant a garden because this is the state we live in, right? So you're working in your backyard. So we would either plant a garden. We might learn about our local plants or fauna. There are edible plants all around us. There are no poisonous snakes on our side of the state because they don't want to cross the mountains. So gardening, we could also build a volcano. All kinds of stuff. So do you see how you can eat this big bites at a time? This one right here, can you see that? F-U-N, Mama, don't skip the fun. What kinds of fun things could you do studying a state? Well, we're in a weird season, so you could do virtual tours of different things. So you could do a virtual tour. If you can find a movie, about what it is you're studying, that's always good. Serve food every single time. Serve food from, if there's a connection. Like if you were reading, what are those books called? Can't think of it. Martin the Warrior. What are those called? Anyway, if you were doing a story that had a particular food, the Redwall series. If you were doing a particular book that had a particular food, then you would want to include that in the fun section. And then math is just, I picked up a book. Doesn't matter what math curriculum you use, they're all the same, okay? They're all the same. I hate them all. And I love pieces of all of them. So you look at the table of contents and you see how many chapters are there. In this book, there are 17 chapters. Most math curriculums start with 1 or 2 chapters of review. And then in the algebraic world down here, I mean arithmetic, in that arithmetic universe, you're doing the same things over and over. It's why I made that I can teach my child benchmarks for learning K through 5. It's so empowering to know that one of the things we can teach our kids is how to read a clock or how to count money or to identify their shapes, right? So know that the first couple chapters are review, and the last couple chapters, if they were in a public school setting, most classrooms, they don't finish the book. That's why they're repeated the next year. So what I do is I take however many chapters there are, and then I do the math. Well, if I divide that by how many months we're going to be doing school, how many chapters do we have to do a month? I'm just going to play with the number 2 chapters in a month. That's a good chunk of math. Typically, you might do 1.5 to 2 chapters. Just because kids can do more math doesn't mean they should. Make sure they know their foundation inside and out. So there you have it. You've got a big bite of homeschool planning, year at a glance. And once you get going, now I did August. So if I were doing this, I would do my golden thread for August, September, October, November, December. When I got to December, I would go, wait a second, Becky. Your family doesn't do school in December. You dive deep into things that are in your heart, things that are important to you, things that are, they're faith-based, right? So December for me is going to be all about nativity and the birth of our Lord and that kind of stuff. So I know that because I've taught school for 20, 25 years. So it's ridiculous for me to think I'm going to do anything in December. So You go August, September, October, November, December. The entire universe, it seems, almost takes December off. And then traditionally, homeschool moms do this big stretch thing in the first week in January, and then they panic because they feel behind because they haven't finished their homeschool stuff. That's why we write in pencil, okay? So you plan through the year, you lace your golden thread, then I always like to stay 6 weeks. I like to have 6 weeks solidly skeletonized when I step into my homeschool year. And I'm always I'm seeing what's working. I'm observing what my kids are biting and delighting into. We slow down when necessary. We speed up when necessary. But you have that golden thread and your big bite to guide you all through the school year. Mama, this is huge when it comes to homeschool planning. You can buy a kit of curriculum, which I have done. I've done every kind of homeschooling that there is imaginable. We started in the public school, send everything to you universe, where we had all the things and all the requirements and all the stress of trying to do somebody else's plan. We've done charter schools. We've done umbrella schools, slightly different. We've done share curriculum with friends and write your own curriculum, create your own curriculum, and kind of unschooling. So we've done it all. And I can tell you that there's no right way to homeschool. There's no one way to homeschool. This is my personal favorite way to plan a homeschool year. That's with the golden thread. And I like to use history because history is so rich. History offers you the ability to touch language, science, fun. Fun includes things like art, music, food, dance, nature, just fun, outside, field trips. You want to have fun while you're teaching your kids. And then math, you can get creative at least once a month. You can see if there are any math resources to teach math word problems, people that discovered something about math from whatever golden thread that you are doing. Yes, I know history rocks. Hey, Gail. Okay, so golden threads. Does this all make sense? So homeschool planning. This bite is the dreamy stage. It's the year at a glance. It's when everything looks hopeful and perfect. It's necessary for you to step back and to see where you're headed. Don't beat yourself up with a guilt stick if you don't finish everything on your year in a glance. This is a flexible plan with you not getting hung up on, well, what is the math thing that we're going to be learning in October? Do I know how to do that? What are the vocabulary words on Wednesday in September? Do my kids want to write them 12 times each? Are we going to write them in sidewalk chalk? Are we just going to spell them as we bounce a ball? You don't need to get into the nitty gritty. You just want your big stroke plan. So that's it. Homeschool planning for today is to take your big bite out of your year, step back, pick your golden thread. If you have questions, like the types of things that I've personally done for my golden threads, I've done, and because I like to watch what other people do, and then I'm able to pick their brains if I have questions, right? So we've done a Native American survey. We've done the Civil War. We did explorers. We did a little bit about states. What else did we do? Ancient civilizations. Let me show you what my high schooler did last year, and then we'll close with that. So let me just pull it up real quick. No, it is here. He did a survey of ancient civilization, and if I can grab it and talk at the same time, I'll show you exactly what we did so he's high school and he's dyslexic and he can't spell for beans, and that's okay because he knows how to use all the tools to help him do that. Let's see. So I gave him this. Nope, that's not what I gave him. Come on, Becky, you can do it. Find it. Ancient history. Number 3, this one. He named it funny. Yep, okay, so I'm gonna show you real quick what he did. Let me close these so I don't get confused. This was our golden thread last year. And so what we did at the beginning of the year is we kind of looked and we said, I don't know, nothing sounds interesting. What do you want to do? I think we're going to do ancient civilizations. So how do you want to approach it? And he said, I think I'd like to do, so let's talk about PowerPoints. Did that get pulled up in the wrong window? Does all make sense? There we go. Ta-da! Okay, this is the end result of his ancient civilization. So I'm going to buzz through quick. I gave him a slide that asked him a question. What does it take to make a civilization? And so he was required to find his golden thread was ancient civilization. So each month, his first assignment was to identify the characteristics of a civilization. And then by the end of that month, he decided which ones were the most interesting to him. He went through that the things that make a civilization are cities and government and religion and writing, social structure, art, specialized jobs. And then he dove into the ancient cultures. And so his golden thread was the characteristics of a civilization as he looked at ancient civilization. And then he picked apart and studied Mesopotamia, Phoenicia, India, China, Japan, and Rome, and the other one, Greece. And he picked things that were really interesting to him. And then at the end of the year, he stood up in front of the family and presented that PowerPoint presentation after we had practiced it for over a week and a half to make sure that he stood up straight, projected his voice, and enunciated his words so that he could be clearly understood across the room. That was a great project. And that project took care of history, language, the science. We did those subscription kits and a couple studies. He did a lot more. For fun, we did all kinds of cool stuff. And then math, he went through his chapters in algebra. So is this overwhelming? Does anybody have any questions before I close out? Please know that if you drop questions in the comments, I will get back to you and I will answer your questions. That's it. Year at a glance. Coming next will be, what do you do from there? How do you pick it apart more, and how do you divide it into monthly tasks? And then after that, there's more after that. So have a great day, and I will see you later. Bye.